In this episode of our photography review show, we're gonna review photos from 19 photographers. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. I hope you had a great week and I hope that you're ready for another huge portion of photography reviews. For those who never been here before, my name is Jakub and I'm a landscape photographer based in West Sussex, England. Now for the past 6 or 7 months I've been reviewing your photos here at Clever Photographer, and it's something that became very popular, and this is why we had to limit the entries to 1 or 2 photos per photographer per week, and that's why we also take the show and usually divide it between 2 or 3 different parts. In the first part we focus on the landscape photographers, and in the second part or third part for the rest of the photography styles. Now we have 19 photographers to look at, so let's jump straight into it. But before we're gonna do that, just a quick reminder that starting from this week, we changed the rules of the entries a little bit, and we reserved the access to the photography review show to the members of our Clever Photographer Academy. Now this is our Facebook group where we have lots of amazing photographers and a great community of people who love to talk about photography, who also join our regular photography competitions and talk all things photography. So if you want to join us, make sure that you head to our website cleverphotographer.com/membership, and you will find all the information there about how you can join us, how you can get all the bonuses of this membership, and one of them being this access to this photography review show. So that's out of the way, let's jump straight into it. And hello and welcome to the second part of the show where we're gonna be looking at food photographers, mixed team photographers, and wildlife photographers. So usually in this part of the show we look at the rest of the photography styles as well as the mixed team photographers, and those are the ones who basically send a mix of different photography styles. Sometimes it's a portrait photography and landscape photography, sometimes it's a macro and wildlife photography, and I'm sure you get the rest. So let's start right away here from Larisa and her food photography captures. So let's jump to it. Let's have a look at the camera details, starting with this one. Canon 600D 1.8 50mm lens, and from camera settings we are on ISO 100, 50mm f3.2 1/80th of a second. So as always with the food photography, really important to keep the ISO down, especially when it's this kind of still life photography where every detail on these close-ups shows, so that's great. f3.2 creating this really nice depth of field with really the focus range being somewhere around here and everything else nice and slowly disappear, so that's nicely done as well. 1/80th of a second, making sure that you have details in all aspects of the photo, and it's quite nice, bright and saturated. So in overall I quite like it. I think there's a lot of blur there, so really the main focus is just on this part. I would like a little bit more of it, but then again, if this would be part of certain series, maybe then as an alternative it's great as well. I just think be careful not to overdo the depth. I think quite often we really like that, especially when we start to be really good at it, just like you are. We just start to overdo it a little bit, and we just need to be careful. Maybe it's not necessarily about the focus mode, maybe it's being able to see a little bit more of background. That would be probably my only note for that. There is a great amount of details which I really like. I think the light is very pleasing as well, really kind of hitting it from this side, creating quite nice darker areas at that part. That also all looks very good. The food styling itself looks quite nice, it looks very appealing, and just very well done altogether. Let's jump into this one with a little bit different style. This is kind of more on a kind of darker saturated kind of tony version, and this is much more bright and white and very kind of appealing. So let's look at it. I believe it's the same camera, same lens. This time from the camera setting we have ISO 100, 50mm f4 1/125th second right here. So I really like this. It's very clean, very bright. And it's kind of almost like a minimal white look, which I really like. I think it looks very, very good for food photography specifically, because the white creates really nice contrast for the subject. Obviously, most of the food being much more saturated and with different color than white, I think it really works together. I also think that the combination of white or the brighter colors with the green always works really, really well. So in this case, I think it looks very cool. The light is really good. It's nicely evenly lit. The sharpness is there as well. I like the depth of field much more here. I like the fact that pretty much all this front and almost towards the end is in focus. I think I just like bigger part of the image to be in focus. I think for the food to be recognized and everything. So I think that works very, very well here. For what I think is a shame when it comes to food styling, maybe it's the angle or something. It looks really kind of squashed, so you can't really enjoy the depth of the dish. I think that's the only thing. And also this mustard or sauce or dressing on the top doesn't look greatly appealing to me, but the rest of it is really nice, and probably some of it are more my personal artistic kind of visions and things the way I see it, so I wouldn't be crazy about it. But I just wish that maybe you could have been positioned differently so you can see the dish a little bit taller than it is. Like this, it looks really kind of flat. So that's about it. Other than that, great picture as always, great technique, and very well done. With the composition itself, as always, excellent use of colors, textures, obviously other elements, really well complementing the colors. It's something what I keep repeating when I see your pictures. You clearly have a good eye on the green and white and creamy colors. Really nicely benefit the colors on the actual dish. The broken egg, the poached egg looks very nice, kind of pouring down. Maybe there is a little part of it where it starts to look a little bit older. Not older, but you know, it's been there a few seconds. So you just want to be with the egg. You always want to be as fast as possible. But the little cheese around and everything, just brilliant. Love it. When it comes to composition on this one, I think there is lots happening on such a small piece. Because obviously it's a very, very tight crop. So then when you look at it, there is also very small amount of place which is in focus. And on that small amount of space, there is a lot happening. There is the cream, the stick, the raspberry, the glitter, the stars. It's just very, very busy for me. However, obviously you look at it and you think, oh, I would love to have this. So just few things to kind of think of it. The rest of it is good. The only thing is, obviously, it looks like it's falling a little bit, so maybe just something to keep an eye on for the future. When it comes to post-processing, nothing to add. I think it's very clean, very well done, good white balance, good shadows and highlight, very well balanced. Here, obviously, the shadows are a little bit deeper. However, you can still see all the details. The contrast is great. It looks very natural and appealing, the food. The saturation is more on the higher note, but again, looking brilliant. And I think altogether it's very well done. So Larisa, for me, well done today. Excellent photos. Always so much pleasure to see them. So you take care, stay safe, and make sure you send us more pictures for the upcoming episodes. Which moves us to the mixed team photographers, starting with Evgeniy right here. Now, Evgeniy, we have two pictures from you, so let's have a look at them. Starting with this really nice macro/flower photography with a lovely insect right here, very well done. And then this kind of dramatic black and white picture. So let's jump to it. Let's have a look what we're looking at. Starting from this one, Pentax K100D. From your camera setting, ISO 200. On 1/350th of a second. So obviously looking at it like this, quite. I'm wondering about the f-stop because the back is really blur and then everything in front is sharp. So that works very, very well, very, very well. Also, the sharpness is nicely done. I really like the water droplets. I think that's quite cool as well. The back is nice there. However, this time it's a little bit smaller. So I think last week I preferred when it was kind of more dominant, more in front. It's still very nice, but it's just a little bit different. Also, the light is quite nice. It's on the edge of being a little bit too harsh, but it's still very nicely done. Again, the water looks great, so the capture is very pretty. The background itself, looking at the edges of the flower, I don't know if you blurred it in post-processing, or if it was done like that. If it was done like that, then well done, because it created really nice kind of bokeh style and it looks great. And all in all, I think technically it's quite well done. Now on this one, it's an interesting capture. However, as a black and white, it kind of really lacks the contrast. I think it's really on a darker, washed out side. So that's a little bit of a shame, I think. Same camera, ISO 200, f11, 1/180th of a second. So as a camera setting goes, it's quite good. Nothing wrong there. Obviously, the ISO keeping it down to minimal. F11 is good with how much is happening on the scene. And 1/180th of a second is obviously good, making sure that the highlights are all there and everything is nice and sharp. So the sharpness all the way, so there is no problem there. The light coming probably from here, from this side, creating quite nice scene. And obviously there are some shadows, so it's kind of hitting it from the side. However, I think this is more about the composition, and that's what I'm not really sure. Obviously, I would prefer the whole part of the statue being there, or just focusing on the cut and on the guy on the boat. The tree, I think, is really distracting amounts of everything else. It also partially covering the main subject, which is a little bit of a shame. So you can't even say that is a frame. If you would have pushed a little bit, and maybe at least the boat, the man, and the animal was kind of without the branches over it, it could work maybe a little bit more, but like this, it's just a lot. It's very, very busy image, definitely in comparison with this one. So just something to work on. And that's pretty much with the composition. Also, when you look at it, it seems like the whole image is kind of turning down. It's like a falling on one side. So that's another thing maybe to think of for the future. Obviously, you could try to turn it around and maybe get something like this. But then you really start to kind of turn around. But I think the biggest kind of issue when it comes to composition is the tree branch. I understand maybe what you were trying to do, but then again, the person and at least the boat would have to be without the branches. So that would be kind of my thing. And then in post-processing, we maybe have a look at it and try to push some of the whites. In this one, as a composition goes, it's all about the cropping. I think obviously you can have it on this side, which is no problem. You could also center it a little bit more, so to kind of push it this way would also be nice. So you could get probably something like this and really have the flower nicely distributed in the center of the image, which I think would work quite nicely here. Other than that, it's a very, very lovely capture with lots of beautiful colors. Talking about post-processing, I think it's very nicely done. There is a lovely vignette around it. These parts are just a little bit too bright for me, I think, so maybe just a little bit of down exposure would help in overall. And you could always just pick a brush in a minus exposure and just make this part a little bit darker to kind of increase the local adjustments and the kind of local contrast and just add to it a little bit more natural look. We leave that one. In this one, well, how could we help it? I think pushing up a little bit the exposure to open it a little bit more. Checking your whites, definitely. The blacks, maybe the other way around, to be honest. Bring it like towards here. Contrast, almost this way. Let's check if we open the shadows a little bit more. And the whites. See how much black is on this one. And then maybe if we would go for like square, and really go for something like this, just so we get rid of all the busyness around and really just bring the focus on the person itself. Something like this, and then maybe heavy vignette on it. Again, something like this, and then with the brush, maybe adding a little bit of exposure to parts. That's about it. That's how far I would take it. I think this is all about the composition and maybe trying to avoid the tree and just focusing really on the main subject would be my suggestion. So a little bit of work to be done on this one. This one is great. So well done, Evgeniy. Thank you so much for sending your photo over. You take care, stay safe, and send us more pictures in the future. Which brings us nicely to John Lister. John, we have a travel photography capture here with this gigantic statue and the step at the back, and then hamster or guinea pigs. Very good, very good. So let's start with this one. John, looking at it, Nikon D7100 with the lens 12-on-28. Now the settings: ISO 200, 26mm, f8, 1/200 of a second. Looking at it like this, I think the ISO is fine. How much noise did it give you with 200? No crazy, so I guess the light was good as well. F8 is decent. There is a kind of sharpness all the way through, or reasonable sharpness anyway. And 1/200 of a second give you quite sharp people as well. If you would have a tripod, ND filter and really push it, you would maybe manage to remove some of them, but there's way too many people to do that. Other than that, I think I like the texture and sharpness on the statue. I think that works quite nice. And the light is quite decent as well. So there is obviously some highlights on the statue, but the rest of it is quite evenly lit and it looks quite cool. Which brings us to the guinea pigs. And let's have a look at the settings here. Nikon Z6, ISO 560, 400mm, f6.3, 1/320th of a second. So looking at it like this, high ISO starting with, although on the animals there is no much noise. After when you move away, you can see the noise here. Maybe you done some noise removal, but it's a little bit visible still. f6.3, obviously that part of the animal is kind of starting to lose the focus, where this part is in focus, so that works. Although I think usually the depth of the field works in this case better when there is no immediate background. So like they obviously standing in front of some wall or something, and so then the separation is not really as strong as we would wish. 1/320th of a second, make sure that they are nice and sharp, and really at this area they are super cute. They're very, very nice and sharp, so very well done there. When it comes to a composition, I would probably, if really the focus is on the faces, because that's where the depth is, I would probably really focus on the faces. Put them nice next to each other. Once you crop both of them, then it starts to look like it's an artistic decision rather than a mistake. And then we get something like this. And we can bring down the exposure a little. And then we can really use a brush and start to add some interest towards their little faces and that part, them. And it all looks good. Obviously, then step in my favorite vignette to get something like this. Then we can again add one more brush with the minus exposure and just gonna remove some parts. This. And get something like this. So let me show you if I can create, duplicate, yes. And let's see this one, if we remove all the edits. So this is before and this is after. Just something maybe a little bit different to try. It would look great black and white. It's just that when you do it like this, it looks like really like a portrait and like artistic decision to focus just on them. This looks like maybe you forget about this part or so on. So it's just a little suggestion of what you could do with it. When it comes to composition here, it's very, very nice. I'm happy the whole statue is there. I a little bit wish the whole gate would be there too. I think that would push it even a little bit further, but I still think it's very nice. Looking at it like this, I think one thing you want to double check is your white balance, which pushes it really blue for some reason. I don't think it was this blue. So something like this, I think, is a good decision. With the tint, let me see, before and after, you can see some green color kind of leaking in this area. So little bit of plus tint is a good thing. Then in effects, I would actually push a little bit of the dehaze because it looks like this background has a haze on it. So just a little bit, let's see before, after. You can see it more at this up. And maybe it's not a haze, maybe it is like a blur from a sun. It could be like some kind of sun blur. So I think this helps a little bit as well. And you could leave it this way. And see, of course, a little bit of vignette would work as well. And I think definitely you could do with brush some extra brushing to bring some of the highlights on the statue up. You know, just brush over the areas where there is the sun already, just to kind of push it up a little bit, I think would be a good idea. Another cool thing you could do with it, which is kind of my favorite, is the selective color. I think that would look great here on this one as well. So you just go in a color mixer, and then kind of remove everything other than the gold. Manage. A bit of the orange on, I think. And then brush, new brush, minus saturation, remove all of this. Just create something like this. Let's see if auto mask. Thing like this, maybe just to create something a bit different again. Low as well, so and now, of course, when I brush, it doesn't work. So I would just add one more brush with the same idea and brush these areas again. Get something like this. Also very, very interesting. Just a different idea. Of course, you could kind of finish it off, brushing off the green trees and stuff. But all in all, it's a brilliant picture. Really love this one. This one just a little bit of help, but still very, very cute capture. Technically also very well done. So, John, thank you so much for sending it over. You stay safe, take care, and hope to see more of your pictures soon. Which brings us to Lieve. Lieve, what do we have from you? Two images right here. A foxy, which looks a little bit knackered from being outside, maybe after the rain. And then this picture right here in the middle of the snow. Let's see what we have. Nikon D300, ISO 250, 18mm f 18 1/1250th of a second. So, looking at this from this point of view, ISO 250, I think on a bright day like this, really, Lieve, you want to keep your camera set to 100 as much as possible. I think that's the ultimate goal. F18 is way too high for this scene, I think. And this is also a reason why you're getting this sensor dust coming out, because once you really go up with the f-stop, you start to get these things showing more and more. And 1/1250th of a second is a great because all the people are sharp. But then with the scene like this, it's a bright anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about the f-stop. The sharpness really is only at this part of the image. Once I go at the back, you can see yourself. It's not really sharp. It's kind of a little bit soft and blurry. Also almost to the point when you get some kind of artifacts coming through it. So I'm not sure about this capture, to be honest. There is a little bit of sharpness here again. Just it seems that the camera was maybe focusing at this part and not really at the rest of the image. So that's just one thing to look at. Also, the light is really harsh here. So that's maybe also a reason why you get this kind of strange color popping out through. And then also you get this really dark areas in these parts where there is almost no details. So we will need to look at that in a second. So those are some of the things here. This one, it almost looks like it was photographed through window because you get this haze here and haze here. And usually it can be removed by going into the effects and pushing the dehaze. So that helps a little bit to remove some of it. So that's better, even though probably this part was so much that it kind of didn't remove it. The details are quite nice. The sharpness is nice. When it comes to setting high ISO 1800, is really high. It's high for any camera, so that will bring lots of noise. And if not noise, then it will bring softness. But I think you can see when I zoom in, the amount of noise is really high there. F6.3 is fine. That's a good dial. Also making it the animal really nice in focus and blurring everything behind. And 1/500th of a second is a good dial to keep the animal sharp. So those are good. Just the ISO is really, really high. which keeps us with the composition. And I think I saw Fox image from you before, and it's kind of still the same story. You want the animal to be fully in a frame, and most importantly, interacting. So in this case, she's interacting with you. She's looking at you. You can see the face, you can see the body, but you just wish the rest of it would be there. Obviously, that would be so much better. Now we would like to remove. We would like to kind of remove this part. So you would probably have to go and crop it away to save some of it, at least to this point. You could do something like this. So then you center the face and get the result like this. But once you're kind of missing that part, it's a little bit difficult. But maybe go. But I'm assuming if it was out of the window, sometimes it's a bit tricky to do all the rest. Anyway, still good. So like this composition is quite smart. I like the flow. I like the leading lines. I think it all makes sense. The people are there giving us a sense of scale and all of that. But then really the softness takes a lot away, and the dark areas, which looks way too black, also takes lots away. So just something really didn't go right there, Lieve. So just kind of looking at it from point of view of photo processing, first of all, I would remove the sensor dust, which can be done using the healing tool right here. And then what could we do? Let's check quickly. Where are we with blacks here? And when I hold black, you can see all the black parts. That's what it's 100% black. There's no details. So we could try to open the shadows, which when we do, we bring back lots of noise, obviously. What about if we do it the other way around and something like this? It helps a little bit, but not crazily. Then we can double check the white balance. Go for auto, which doesn't help neither. It makes it way too yellow. So this is kind of better a little bit. These kind of yellow parts. Just not sure 100% how to help it, Lieve. I think if I would want to do some editing on it, you would have to send me a raw file. However, still good attempt. You know, there's nothing wrong about it. The thinking behind it was very good, and there is lots of it right composition way. But the technical part really let you down here with the softness, with the dark parts and everything else. So we'll just leave it there. Thank you so much for sending the pictures over. It's a pleasure to review them. You take care, stay safe, and make sure you send us more in the future. Which brings us next to Stevie. Stevie, let's have a look what you sent us this week. We have this sunset here, sunset or sunrise. And then we have this beautiful bird here. Now, if I have to be honest, this is completely different level compared to this one. Incredible depth of field, incredible level of details, excellent light, great composition, really well done with almost the bouquet at the back. Excellent work, really something to be proud of. Where this one, you have some sensor dust left behind right here, which really needs a little bit of help. That's just kind of thing I see from the first part. Also, it's a little bit too dark in overall. It looks noisy to me, just from the first point of view. When you look at it, there's lots of this kind of dust and noise, and not just like a white noise as well. So I guess it was maybe way too dark, or I'm not sure why. The sky is beautiful. It's very dramatic, but all in all put together, it's just yeah, it's a bit it's not great because it's too dark. So you photograph probably too dark of it. There is lots of this texture from the water. There is lots of noise, and it's just not many details. So also the whole picture is very, very busy when it comes to composition. You know, there is texture here, then there is the black texture there, which brings lots of attention. Then there is a bright back, which brings again lots of attention, and it's just lots of things happening at the same time. So what could we do with it? When it comes to composition, I think I wish you would have avoided this part altogether. Just really try to take the water, the background, and the sky. The best thing altogether would be to have a tripod with you, set up the camera on a tripod, let it run, so the exposure will go down automatically because it's a dark scene, and the water will become smooth. So means that we lose some of the texture. Then there will be the back silhouette, which will look great as well. And then you will have the sky, which will be a little bit more stretchy, but it will look great. So that would be my suggestion for it when it comes to the technical point. In this case, it's just a lot. So the eye is kind of going around and trying to wonder what is it that you're trying to show. Eventually, obviously, you understand that it's the sky, but just lots happening there. So for future, that's what I would do. Even when I go photograph at this time of the night, definitely ISO 100. In this case, f7. There's nothing to be worried about the sharpness or details. It's way too far. f7 maximum 7.1, and then let the shutter speed bring whatever it needs to bring. Definitely for a shot like this, tripod is a must. So that's where I would take it. Post-processing wise, I mean, just double checking your white balance. Obviously it was much bluer. So let's see. Something like this. Yeah, even the cropping is well done. I mean, you're really kind of doing many things right on the image. You know, 2/3 of the sky is perfect. 1/3 of the land, very, very good as well. But yeah, it's how much is happening on the picture, which we need to kind of correct a little bit and think of for the future. So less is definitely more. And with sunset, powerful sunset like this, it's definitely the case. And now we got on this one, which is brilliant. So let's have a look at the setting. ISO 160, which is very cool for picture like this. F6.3 with the 250 millimeters, obviously creating this beautiful blur at the back. 1/320th of a second, making sure that everything is nice and sharp with massive levels of details. Really, really love this. Great light. Obviously, if you would want to really push yourself, you would wish this wouldn't be there because it's not the most prettiest thing on the world, but it's a part of the scene and it really isn't that distracting because the rest of it is great. The eyes, the kind of really side shot works very, very well here. And this bokeh almost style of the light behind looks brilliant. The composition is great as well. As I say, the only thing I would wish is this right here. And the post-processing is great. Natural, bright, with a big impact, clear message, excellent, Stevie. So two things. So I mean, I'm assuming maybe this is something what you're very comfortable with, and this is something what you need to work with. And definitely, so let's look at the positives on this one. Your cropping is great. This is exactly the idea. You have the right idea about when to go shoot. The sky is beautiful. Maybe 15 minutes earlier would be better, but that's about it. If you're going to shoot at this time of the day, definitely tripod is the thing to bring and set it up on it, have it ready. And then thinking about the composition, when it comes to this really big impact skies, you need less elements and more focus on the sky. So none of these trees and branches, more on the sky. Because if you would go and really crop it, let's just switch off. If you would really crop it to what it should be and could be, let's just do this. Suddenly you have a completely different image. Incredible sky with a little bit of down. It wouldn't even need to be there. Very impactful, beautiful, excellent. So I'm just trying to give you some tips for future. Stevie, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to review your photos again. Thank you for sending them over. You take care, stay safe, and send us more in the future. Which brings us to the last photographer from the mixed team category, which is Zdenek. Zdenek, our regular photographer who sent us pictures all the way from South Africa, and usually in a combination of an animal and landscape photography. And this one I love. What a great panorama. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Great open scene, one single tree right here, really standing out, great background, great details and texture in the sky. Brilliant, brilliant. This is exactly very kind of clean composition, great panorama with a big impactful foreground element. Again, helping us with the size and everything. Brilliant. I love this picture. When we talk about the technical details on this one, Canon 600D, 18 to 55 millimeters lens, and from setting ISO 100, so spot on there, 23 millimeters, so quite nice wide, but not crazy wide, which I think is quite good in this case. Making the tree and the mountains in a good proportion. F11 is spot on here, making sure everything is sharp. Usually F11 gives you the slight blur at the back, but you want that anyway. No human eye can see the tree and the background 100% sharp. So F11 is great. And 125th of a second is a good shutter speed. It looks like it was bright day, but not crazy bright, which I think also really helps. And the 125th second gives you nice texture, nice colors, and everything there. So excellent. I'm really, really happy with this one. Now with this one, we are on the same camera, a different lens, 55 to 250. This is Leopard. So ISO 100, 135 millimeters, so nice zoom, f5.6 with excellent blur at the back, and 250th of a second, so really nice sharpness. Great level of details on the face, on the ears, on the mustache. Excellent, nice graduated softness towards the back, ending by this really nice blurry background, which I think really helps here with the depth. And this is excellent portrait of the animal. Well done, Zdenek. Really impressed. Great cropping as well. Great colors. Little bit harsher, obviously, the light, but that's what it is at this time of the day. Obviously, to be able to see the animal, I understand that's where you have to go out. Excellent. Also, really happy with the composition, by the way. How the head is pointed on this kind of golden triangle here. I think the kind of upper third, this really worked very, very well here. I think it was great. And then obviously the whole head in both of them. So excellent composition with the body being on this side, having a little bit of space in front. Excellent, great. Nothing to add. On this one, again, very similar with the kind of cropping here, having sky kind of occupying most of the upper third, where the sky is nice, but it's not your main subject, so let it stay there. Then the ground being the middle ground, kind of the second and first part of the image. I think also what works really well here, that the kind of middle third is occupied by most of the middle ground, so I think that also works really, really well. And when the composition goes, the tree really plays the main. This is like what you think of South Africa, so I think it works excellent. Also that the mounting is all there, creates really nice balance composition as well. So I am crazy about this picture. I love it. I think it's brilliant, brilliant. When it comes to post-processing, I would tune down a little bit the saturation, I think. I think it's a bit too saturated, and push the vibrance just to make it a bit more natural. I think maybe the sky needs a little bit of closing down, just to bring more attention towards the bottom parts or something like this. And probably similarly on the bottom here, something like this would be my suggestion. So then it really brings us stuff here. And then just maybe some local adjustments, but not necessarily, but you could just to kind of help some parts of the image stand out. Something a little bit like Ansel Adams used to do on his old landscape photos, really kind of picking different parts and making them with different brightness, adding contrast to them. Maybe something what you could kind of try. So I'm gonna overdo it here, but then I will bring it back up and do something like this. Anyway, brilliant photo, very well edited, very well done, lovely. Now on this one, I would Photoshop out this bit, just if you really want to be picky. And other than that, yes, you could do a little radial gradient on the face and invert it, and then just bring the exposure down around it. I think the white balance is fine. Just kind of looking at it. Maybe just less yellow a tad, maybe just something like this. Push a little bit the vibrance to let her stand. And then what you could do is just use a brush and very lightly add a little bit of texture on the areas of the face, just to even more increase the contrast between the sharpness of the face and the rest of the body. All the way, Zdenek, I think since I've been watching your pictures, those are my favorites so far. Brilliant, really high quality technique, high quality composition, excellent results. Thank you so much for sending them over. Take care, stay safe wherever you are, and make sure you send us more pictures soon. And it's time to jump into the final part of the show, where we're going to be looking at the final 4 wildlife photographers. Starting with Donna, with two beautiful bird captures. Starting with this one, what the image. What an incredible image with these drops here. Beautiful, beautiful, well done, well captured. And then this incredible bird flying right around it. Excellent, Donna. Very, very, very good. And then this one, a little bit softer on the edges, but then beautiful scene with the tree and everything. Again, a great, great capture. Very well done. Excellent, excellent photo. So let's have a look at them, starting with this one. I was wondering about the shutter speed on this one. 1/5000th of a second. Well done. Well done. Excellent. Excellent. Let's look at it. Starting with the settings. Again, we are on Nikon D850. The lens is 70 to 200 millimeters. And from the settings, ISO 800, 200 millimeters, f4 and 1/5000th of a second. So obviously ISO 800 a little bit higher, but then you know yourself the light conditions. There is not much noise at all, so that's really nicely done. 200 millimeters, yes. F4 obviously creating this really blurry background. It softens some of the water, I assume, as well, but then there are details in some and softness in some other, which actually creates quite nice effect. I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. 1/5000th of a second, obviously making sure that everything is nice and sharp, and nice and sharp it is. So very well done here. Excellent. Moving on this one, we are on different lens. This one is a 200 to 500 millimeters, ISO 320, 500 millimeters, f5.6, and 1/1250th of a second. So that is very cool. Literally looking at it like this, unfortunately, I think there's more sharpness on the tree than on the bird itself. When I zoom in, there's a little bit on the face, maybe some on these feathers here. And then obviously all of this is much sharper, which is probably to do with the shutter speed or the zooming or whatever kind of happened there, which is a little bit of a shame, but I can imagine it happens. Other than that, the light is a little bit harsher on this one, I feel, than on this one. Obviously creating some shadows here, which sometimes can be a little bit distracting. Also, you get this really strong highlights here. So that's how it is. You there at what time you are, and that's how it is. But it's something to kind of notice. Also, the depth of field here, I'm not 100% sure if this sky was there or no, because you can see some softness here. So that kind of gives it away a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's also a little bit of brushing here. That's just how it is. But it fits there. I think the sky is very well chosen there, and it creates an overall very nice scene together. It's just something to kind of think of. Now, okay, let's look at our composition. Composition is lovely on this one. The bird in the center of the attention, which makes complete sense. With the tree creating a nice element into it, I think it works quite well. I wouldn't do anything else there. Similarly on this one, nothing to do. I really love how the bird fill up the space and then everything else is counterpart with the water droplets. Again, creating very lovely scene together and excellent composition. So composition wise, spot on both. Obviously, if you would want to be super picky, you would wish the bird is outside of the tree. So just to create kind of tree and bird element, but that's how it is. Post-processing wise, let's just double check your white balance. And I think I agree that, look at the bird, when we push the yellow and pink a little bit, I think the colors become a little bit more natural. Maybe not that much the pink, but I don't know if you can see it on the video, but he has a kind of green hue, not necessarily where the green's supposed to be, but in the other parts, which is completely normal because there is lots of green happening. So the camera will give a little bit of the hue in these areas. So I think pushing a little bit of the yellow and pink is always a good idea. Now, I don't think it needs any more saturation or anything. Only thing I would maybe do is to use a brush and push a little bit of the texture and just paint on the areas where he is in focus. So, or she. He. Just to even more increase the contrast between the sharpness and the softness. And that's about it. Other than that, great. Talking about this one, what could we do? Vignette. Bit of vignette, maybe, yes. That's about it. I can't really, because it's very natural and I don't really want to push it in any other direction. I think it's nice. The bird is flying kind of towards you. It has space in front. The blue works very nicely with the colors of the wings. I would actually leave it. Let's not do anything else with it. We can double check always the white balance, but then it pushes really yellow. Anytime there's so much blue, it always pushes yellow and it doesn't really do that great job. So in overall, let's leave it. Donna, thank you so much. Excellent images, especially this one. I think with the droplets, it's perfect. Very, very well done. But both great captures. Thank you very much. Which brings us to Josh. Josh, we have two images. Mighty Lion, which doesn't sleep tonight. And then this beautiful cut right here. So two cuts. Let's have a look at it. Starting, this is a mobile phone capture, I assume. Ooh, that is very good result for mobile phone. Now, obviously with the mobile phones, when it comes to the camera settings, it's a little bit different than with your DSLR mirrorless cameras. So the settings doesn't really make sense in such a way we would understand. However, still ISO 55, f1.8, 1/120th of a second. So let's have a look. I assume there was a window in between you, which you can't really see. So that's very well done. There is quite decent sharpness on him. Of course, that once you start to kind of zoom in, you see a little bit of pixelation. But in all, looking at it like this, it's quite nice. The details on him works very, very well. And it's a little bit over yellow for me, but we can look at it in a post-processing. But all in all, the light is quite nice. I think for mobile phone, it's a great capture. Really, really nice. When we talk about this one has a less details. I don't know if it's the same camera or not. This one has a less details. There is also lots of blur at the back there, if you can see it with me like this. There's some kind of strange artifacts here, lots of blur. There's lots of blur all across. This almost seems like there are some parts which kind of cross. And maybe he had a fence in front of him. I know, it's a little bit visible, Josh. Well done. For first, I couldn't say so, but now when you zoom in, you can kind of see it. Which is okay. Let's leave it. Let's pretend that it's not there. But obviously you could see the softness from far, these kind of artifacts, and you start to wonder, and then you zoom out and then you realize what it is. But great attempt. Really respect to you that you went for it, because it looks great. It looks like the cat is sitting in the middle of nowhere. The softness at the back is something what I would kind of look at. Also, the sharpness on the cat isn't the greatest, but still, again, great attempt. Quite nice light. Quite nice depth as well. When it comes to composition, this is great. It's great. Obviously, the main subject, center of attention, in the center of the photo, there are other elements which kind of help just to kind of recognize the size and scale of the animal. So I think that works quite nicely too. And all in all, it's quite nicely done. When we talk about this one and we talk about composition, I tell you what's the biggest shame is that there is just not enough space here. There's the little bit of a crop, which just takes away, it doesn't look that professional. When you're capturing animal like this, you really want the animal to be there in full. You don't want like a crop on the bottom. You want a little bit of space around them. And specifically when you're capturing such a wild animals as this, you really always want to capture them, if you're capturing the whole body, with plenty space around them, because it just makes sense, If you would capture just the eyes or just the portrait, which would be totally possible. So you would, for example, go for something like this, then nobody would mind. Let's see, we would have gone for. Then nobody mind that you would crop it, because everybody would know that you crop it intentionally as an artistic decision. Where if you leave like this, it does give away the fact that obviously it wasn't framed right. So that's just something to think of. Now, looking at it and talking about post-processing, let's just double check the white balance, which I agree need to be a little bit cooler, but I don't think it's necessarily cooler. Let's just actually push it a little bit, and let's go into color mixer and let's actually tune down a little bit of the yellow and orange. I think that helps a little bit more. Another thing, we can go in effects and again push a little bit more of the dehaze. So that helps us to remove the kind of effect of the window. So this was your original. This makes it just a little bit more realistic. And that's about it. Other than that, yeah, you could go in and add a vignette to bring some attention towards it and so on. I'll tell you what would be brilliant. You could kind of really turn it around and then maybe go for something like one-on-one. And then really bring the attention towards the lion. What we would have to go for, something like this. And then turn it to black and white. Bring down the exposure a little bit, add heavy vignette to it, and then with the brush, just add some exposure, maybe this part and this part. And then again, you could add another brush and bring down the exposure, just kind of close this around him, not that crazy, but just a little bit. And I think it needs a little bit more bright on this side, not crazily, but just a little, just so it doesn't look so obvious. And I think that will be brilliant. I would probably crop it even closer. And I mean, that's a brilliant capture. Very, very, very cool. Very dramatic, heavy. We can push the contrast and details, no effects. We can push the texture. Not crazily, but bring down the clarity like this. And then maybe we add one more radial gradient for the overall face. And you get something like this, which I think from this to this is really cool. So technically great idea, great capture of the animal, beautiful, well done. On this one, obviously, when it comes to editing, you need to kind of double check these edits, which is great at time, but after a while, it's a little bit visible. And that's about it. So Josh, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your photos with us. It was a pleasure to review them for you. If you have more, make sure to send them in the future. Which brings us to Ken. Ken and this beautiful bird this week. No, I love this one. Now, this is what we're talking about, Ken. It's a single bird, isolated, no distraction, beautiful level of details, great light, brilliant capture, spot on. Little bit of reflection, which is not necessarily that great. Where on this one, there is the harsh light, great reflection, but lots of distraction around to take away from the bird. Where this one, spot on. Probably one of my favorite for quite a while now, Ken. Brilliant capture. This one, maybe just too much space around him, and also lots of brightness on the bird itself. So let's have a look at it. Starting with this one, let's have a look at the camera details. Again, Nikon Coolpix P1000, ISO 280, f4.5, and 1/125th of a second. So quite good details there. Obviously with a little bit of higher ISO, but as always, quite manageable. So that's good. Sharpness is good on all the details on the body. Obviously, the background is soft and blurry, which is good. And again, the contrast between the color of the bird and background is brilliant. Where on this one, we are on ISO 360. And you can kind of see the noise a little bit this time. Also, the sharpness isn't the greatest compared to the first one. 1/60th, maybe that's the reason, because of the 1/60th of a second. Maybe that's why the sharpness, it's just a touch soft. Not soft, but touch soft. Now, when it brings us to composition, I think this really need to be cropped a little bit more from top and bottom. I would just really focus on the bird rather than everything else. So maybe something like this is what I would do. I would keep it nicely on this side on the third. I wonder even. And that's where I would take it from. Very good. So that's what I would do with composition. When it comes to post-processing, again, I think it's way too wide here. So I don't know if in overall we could actually bring the exposure down a little, maybe just a little bit, and leave it there. Where on this one, on opposite, I think that needs a little bit of extra exposure. I think that will help in overall. Open the shadows a little bit. Well, maybe to do with just a touch of highlights, I think. Double check your whites. Double check your blacks. And that's about it. Brilliant capture. Love it. Close it with the vignette to bring more attention towards the bird. Beautiful. Ken, really happy. You should be proud of this one. It's a great capture. Which brings us to the final photographer of the week, Laurie. Laurie, we have a mole wildlife photography from you. We have a sheep, goat. What are we looking at? Is it written here? Goat. Thank you for the description. And then we have a doe. So beautiful 2 images. This one is so cute. Oh my God. Let's have a look at it. Canon 5D Mark II, ISO 500, 428 millimeters. She looks a little bit scared, to be honest. F8, 1/500 of a second. Lovely level of detail. Very nice kind of back side light, which looks really, really cool, actually. Helping with the contrast in overall, I think. F8 creating nice soft background with the 428 millimeters. It makes sense. ISO 500 will give us a little bit of noise, I guess. Yeah, a little bit. It's kind of visible, but it's not. I'm not too crazy about it. It's fine. It's good. I really like it. So well done on this one technically. On this one again, technically very well done. Obviously long lens, 428 millimeters, higher ISO again. I think this is where the noise is a little bit more visible. Almost looks like this was maybe a darker scene, like less light actually in the scene. F8, obviously because it's kind of flat, it doesn't make that much of a difference at this moment because the animal is sharp, this is sharp as well, and because this is kind of low down, you don't see the softness as much. This is, I think, I don't know if I was telling you last time, but this is an example of where the animal has obviously naturally very similar colors towards where they live, so it doesn't create that much of a contrast, and it just takes away a little bit from the whole feel of the image. But so the ISO is probably the only thing I would be worried about. I quite like the light. I think it's evenly lit, so that's quite nice. When it comes to composition, I would probably go here for the 16:09. I think it would make sense. Crop it, put her on these kind of thirds here, leave the tree here because I think that works very nicely. We could also just do it so we actually put her head on the third and do something like this, which makes it a little bit more impactful, I think. I think there's a lot of open space around her, which just takes the attention away, and it works great like this. Where with this one, let's have a look. Is there enough space to put the eye in this third? So maybe something like this. I don't think it needs to be. It's more kind of being really detailed. I think the composition is nice. I really like the depth with these stones being out of focus. I think that works great. So obviously it's kind of like she's sitting in between the two, he, she, and I think it looks great. I really like it. It's a storytelling image, which sometimes is much better than 100 composition rules, and I love it. When it comes to post-processing, I think there's a little bit of blue, which could be helped here. When we go to, what does it, white balance tell us here? Oh, let's push the tint down. Because of the stones, they are quite pink, you see. So if we would use a brush and add to it a little bit of yellow, could we help with that? Oh, we can. Great. You see how it removes the blue? Also from this stone, by the way. But I think that helps tremendously. We don't want to add it where there is already yellow, although I think... Okay, so we start with this part of the eyes and image and everything. I think that helps. Let me show you before and after. So blue before, after, and then I would add one more, but much less, maybe just 5, and add it on this part because there's also still some blue, but not that much. So that's about it. And also on the first part, maybe a little bit of the pink, just like this. And that's about it. I think that looks just bring a little bit more attention, maybe by using the radial gradient, pointing it towards the face, invert it, and then just bring a little bit of the exposure down. So this is basically a way of how to create vignette, but direct the center of the vignette somewhere else and then in the center. Let me just delete this. If I go in the effects and then in the vignette, when I bring it down, obviously the center of the vignette will be always in the center of the image, which doesn't always work. It works on most of the pictures, but not always. So we can do something like this very lightly. And then I prefer to use the radial gradient. So then point the center of the radial gradient onto where I want to be center of the vignette. And rather than saying darken this part, what I say, I invert the vignette. So I'm affecting everything outside of the circle, and I just bring down the exposure. And then I get something like this. And then I can always step in with a brush with a little bit of exposure and just brushing the areas which I want them to be a little bit brighter. That's about it. Brilliant. Laurie, thank you so much. Thank you for all your pictures. Thank you for all your support. It's such a pleasure to have you with us and see more of your pictures. You stay safe and send us more of your pictures in the future. And the same goes for all of you folks. If you want to join us, make sure you check out our new membership, Clever Photographer Plus, which give you access to our weekly photography review shows. It gives you access to our Clever Photographer Academy group, and also it gives you access to our monthly huge photography bundles where you get skies, textures, brushes, presets, LUTs, and everything you're gonna ever need for photography. So head to our website cleverphotographer.com and find out more about it today if you want to join us already for the next episode of Photography Review Show. For all of you, thank you so much for watching today. My name is Jakub and I can't wait to see you again soon.